Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the 17th episode of Ara the Autistic Alien. I'm super happy that you're here with me today again. And today I want to cover, let's say, a broader bunch of topics simply because there are a couple of things I want to talk about. And the first thing I want to talk about is, as I said last week, I have like this questionnaire that I have to fill out, which is part of my diagnosis. And also, I had a questionnaire for someone who knew me good as a child, which I gave to my mom to fill out. And I looked at it as well. And to me, it's just like the diagnosis thing they gave to my mom is for kids and teenagers from 14 to 24. And I'm 35 now. And then also, like, the questions I had to answer, or like in my own questionnaire, most of them I know from the books that I read about autism and about ADHD, they are male symptoms. So all these questionnaires that they give me as a female, which is 35 years old, are either for kids who are at least 10 years younger, or they are put in a way which is very male symptoms. Yeah, it doesn't take into consideration anything that I studied on my own, like the thing I already covered before, that we have this good girl programming that will change the symptoms of ADHD and autism in females very strongly. And even the questions that he asked me, like, I really love my therapist. I really like him. He's a good guy. But like the questions he asked me are also like, because I'm so deep in the topic, I know that a guy would answer differently. And for a guy, the diagnosis would be so clear. And for me, it isn't. Simply, so many times I answered questions to him in a sense of, that's what I would do, but then that's what I do. Yeah? So, like, the thing I would do is way more autistic than the thing I am doing because I'm conditioned, because I'm programmed. So, to me, it makes me a bit sad because I just understand that, like, if they tell me that I'm not autistic, I will not believe them because these tests do not show to me in any way. Like, for sure, the thing is not over. So, like, I don't want to judge a book before I read the whole story, but still, like, these questionnaires, they just show me again that everything is so male oriented and everything was studied in males. Like for tens of years, they thought that ADHD is a symptom that only male people have, simply because they didn't look for the symptoms in females. And I learned last week that the suicide rate in females with undiagnosed ADHD is 4 times higher than in the rest of the population. So this really, it makes me angry, because if that's the way they diagnose us with a male, like, frame or structural work, how should that work? Oh yeah, I'm not male autistic, Wow, thank you for the diagnosis. Like, wow, like I'm not a big fan of the system anyways, but this really makes me question everything even more, Like, what is that? Yeah, like, wow. And what also, like, fucked me up a little bit is that in the questionnaire that my mom had to fill out, like, even before she fills out the questions or answers the questions, it says that autism is 4 times higher in males than in females. So this is already preoccupying somebody who fills out this formula for a woman in giving different answers. Because in their brain, it's already, oh yeah, she's a female, so she's 4 times less likely to have that. Yeah, why is it even mentioned there? Why is gender such a big thing? I really, I don't get it. And yeah, it's just like, I really feel that we have to do something about that. I feel like we should really talk more about ADHD in general. Because, like, as I said before, like 1% of all persons is autistic. That's 1 in 100. That's 30 in 3,000. and they are not diagnosed. And now I don't remember like the percentage with ADHD and ADD, but it's much higher. Yeah? So you probably know at least 10 people or have met 10 people who have undiagnosed ADD or ADHD and who most probably suffer mentally and internally because they blame and shame themselves for being not neurotypical. And because nobody is talking about it, and because my whole generation grew up in the knowing that if you have this, they will just give you drugs. Nobody is talking about it. So this is like a weird taboo that everybody talks about it, but they don't talk about it in the real way, you know? Diagnosis is really not good for these things. And to have to wait half a year or a year to get a diagnosis is not okay. All of these things are not okay. How many people kill themselves because they have to wait too long for a diagnosis in Switzerland? Yeah? This really pisses me off. So yeah, I'm thinking about what I'm gonna do there. But like what really fucks me up the most is that like if this is also the diagnostic framework for people with ADD or ADHD, and they also get asked all these male questions and asked about male symptoms, and it's not considered that they have another conditioning and that their brain works differently because they get hits of dopamine differently. I believe that a lot of people wanted to get a diagnosis and were like females and were told that they are not this or that because they don't fit in the male framework. And this fucks me up even more because I think that's kind of what happened to me. Yeah? Like when I was a teen. So yeah, like, I don't know, I really believe that it's so important to talk about this earlier because also like what fucks me up a little bit is that I'm 35. My mom doesn't really remember so much from my childhood. She had three kids. So that was a lot going on at home. And it's like 30 years ago. So a lot of the questions she was really unsure to answer because she didn't remember quite well and she doesn't want to make a mistake in this questionnaire. So I believe it's really important that we get diagnosis earlier. Also, like my therapist wanted to get the paperwork from everything that happened to me psychologically in my teens, but there is no paperwork anymore. The psychiatrist that worked with me when I was 19 is not in work anymore, and I don't know where I would get that paperwork because in Switzerland you are only obliged to keep it for 10 years. And this is like 16 years ago. Then my doctor I had at the time also doesn't have any like proper paperwork. So it's just nothing is left. Everything is gone. And like that, it's super hard because I'm 35 and I learned how to live my life. So I believe it's not that easy to even give me a diagnosis, especially when I'm like a high functioning autist or whatever, you know. I'm pretty sure that I have ADD as well. But then again, I don't believe it's so easy to diagnose me because like a lot of things also have happened, no? So maybe I even have PTSD or something like that, which plays into my symptoms simply because I was not diagnosed for such a long time. And like I repeatedly lived through the same trauma because I didn't understand that I was different. So I always blamed myself and I always thought that I could be different. And that's a lot of trauma you build up inside of yourself, yeah? That's a lot of shaming. That's a lot of blaming. And that's a lot of, like, the biggest reason why I prefer to spend time alone. Because then I don't have that. I don't question myself when I'm alone. I'm questioning myself when I'm around others. Because that was, like, my experience for 35 years. That I'm different. And that there's something wrong with me, and if I only did my best, I could control it. And that's kind of like what I want to talk about in this episode is we humans put themselves over everything. Yeah, we are the ruler of the world, or that's what we believe. Yeah, I totally disagree, but it's what we believe. So even if I totally disagree, there is this belief inside of me as well. Yeah. So whenever something happens, and I did like my best and my everything, I did my everything to reach that goal and I just don't reach it. Yeah. Like I do everything to be more social. I do everything to not turn into a dragon when situations trigger me. I do everything. But then I still get triggered and I still freak out and I explode. Or I do everything to, like, I'm pregnant and I do everything to keep my baby. It's not my example, but of a friend. And the baby goes away, like it doesn't get born. And then we believe that we could have done better. If only we didn't smoke that cigarette. If only I would have stayed at home and not go out to people that can trigger me. If only. And that's the biggest lie you will ever tell yourself. Okay? It's the biggest lie ever. We do not carry that much responsibility. We never have, we never will. We are very, very powerful beings. Humans are very powerful beings. But there are greater powers than us. Yeah? And to believe that you have the full control over your life is nothing but a blatant lie. You can call these other powers however you want. You can call them spirit, you can call them angels, you can call them God, you can call them the universe, you can call them whatever. Call them the quantum field if you want to. But you are not the navel of evolution. We all are. We all are the same. Evolution is happening through us. Yeah? And so we are an expression of universal evolution. The funny thing is that even the need for control is a part of this expression. But the belief that we control the full outcome and that if only we did our best, it would be good, is a Disney conditioning. It's a full-blown Hollywood lie. Not gonna happen. You can do your fucking best and shit will turn to you. And I know that sucks, but that's because, you know, we don't only live one life. Yeah? So as long as we stay in the perspective that in this one life, if we do everything good, everything will turn out good, then we will, it's a lie. Yeah? But if you look from the outside perspective, which I can zoom out into, like the full circle of all reincarnations on one planet of a soul is one full beautiful picture. Yeah? But then there are lives where you can do your best and shit turns to you and everything fucks up all the time. I know people who have these kind of destinies and it's so fucked up and it's so hard to keep your faith. But the most important thing is to always understand that there are bigger powers at work and they only want your best. And you are not in control. You can, when you do your best, that's all that was needed, you know? And I believe that this strongly comes from us having this one goal in mind, and then we have to reach that goal. So when we do the path towards that goal, and then we reach a point, but we don't reach the goal because the baby doesn't get born, or I get triggered, although I did everything to not be triggered. Then we feel like the whole path was not worth walking. Yeah? If only I never did that. If only I never got pregnant. And that's where the problem lies. That we are fixated on one outcome. And this one outcome needs to be realized, otherwise we failed. Yeah, it's coming from school also, it's conditioning. And it's like we want this sense of security, yeah? But in my opinion, what is really true in the universe is that it's important to have that goal. It's important to have the illusion of control. It's important that you take the path under your feet to reach that goal. But maybe you were supposed to reach the other goal all the time. Yeah? because that was your story, and that was your teaching, and that was your blessing in disguise. So it's a kind of funny thing, no? To keep control and try to reach the goals you set, but once you definitely see that you didn't reach that goal, but like you are in a different place, maybe let go of the goal. Yeah? And in that, we are really all the same. We're all the same. I do that myself as well. Like, so many times I blamed and shamed myself for not reaching what I wanted to reach, although I gave my everything to it. I'm one of these full-blown crazy artists who will put every dime they have into a project and every second they have, and after 2 years they will realize, oh fuck, I don't have a social circle anymore. So for sure we can also learn from these situations, like understand that maybe things need balance. And even when we strive for a goal, we should not forget the path that takes us there and enjoying this path that takes us there. Because when we enjoy the path that takes us there, it's also a little less bad when we do not reach the goal that our ego wanted so badly, right? But yeah, I just realized that when I let go of the control, once I understand that I'm somewhere else, and when I can embrace where I am right now without blaming myself or without shaming myself for not having reached anything or like not having reached my goal, but just accept that it was the path that I had to walk and it wasn't the goal I had to reach, because if it would have been the goal that I had to reach, I would have reached it. And that's the beautiful thing about these powers. You can absolutely rely on them to give you what you need. It's not necessarily what you want, but it's what you need to embody more love and to get more love. So it's always a good thing, yeah, although it hurts sometimes. And like the beautiful example of my own existence is the project I talked about before, this 2-year project of creating a mobile app. And yeah, like it didn't work out in the end. Like on the last couple of meters, there was some big explosion and everything turned bad. So I turned the whole content of the mobile app into a web app on my website. It's called Gnothise. And when I did all of that, I mean, it was so much work again, and I almost, like, I had a burnout during that whole process, but still, after that was done, I was like, oh my God, this is such a better solution than the mobile app ever was. Because for a mobile app, you need to sell through Apple Store or Google Play Store. So these are two of the big tech companies that, in my eyes, have too much of a, I don't know the English word right now. They just have, they own too much of a certain field already in my eyes. And also, I don't really see why I should give these guys money for things I do, especially when then they give me rules. It's kind of like the state, no? I pay the state taxes, and then the state gives me rules I have to live by. And that's kind of like how app stores work. Yeah, I have to pay them, but then they tell me how my app has to work, so they accept it. And I kind of understand where it's coming from, because of course you could like hack a lot of people if you install illegal apps on their cell phones and whatever, but still. So on my website, you can use the app without logging in, without having to buy anything. And as long as you have internet, it's accessible. Yeah. So it's so much better. It's so much freer. Yeah. It's exactly what I wanted and it's exactly what I needed. But my ego got stuck on this idea of this mobile app. Yeah. And I still think a mobile app is a beautiful idea, but it's not worth the hustle that I went through for like the result I want to achieve. Yeah. Yeah. So that's just like my example. And that's actually a cool bridge towards what I want to talk about also today. like the shaman that works with you in Gnothise Auton and also in Enzolia, he's kind of like my mascot. His name is Jilly. And Jelly is a name that came to me like many, many years ago. I would say like 20 years ago when I was like around 15 or something. And I had this friend from Senegal who like really loved listening to me, like just telling things, like about my life or like the things I understood when I studied trees or whatever. And he was like, you are a jelly. And I was like, what's a jelly? And then he was like, in West Africa, um, they have this kind of like tradition. They have different kinds of shamans. So like one shaman will be like the healer, like the real natural healer that knows all the herbs and all the remedies and knows all this physical stuff, yeah? But then they will also have a jili. And a jili is also a shaman, but he's a shaman that heals with stories. So it's a shaman that keeps the tradition alive by remembering all like the stories of the tribe and the legends and like all these like archetypes that kind of keep the connection to everything that is from the tribe alive. And they also like work with music and with sounds and just like with the powers of sound, so to speak, yeah, and the power of storytelling. And that was really touching to me. That's why I also like I really took that name on. I also got it tattooed, and it's to me it's kind of a part of my identity, because I don't know the English word, but in German it would say bard. In like the Celts, they had their bards. Yeah, maybe from Asterix and Obelix, the guy they always tie to the tree because he can't sing, so that's the bard. But usually they were able to sing, and they were not tied to trees to shut up. So yeah, Trubadix was his name. Yeah, and so yeah, like all the ballads and like these, also the French chanson, for example. All of this is kind of like the legacy of the bards. Yeah, because they kept like the folk tradition alive through chants and through songs that were very easy to remember. Like we also have a lot of them in Switzerland, and I'm sure wherever you are from, there are like these very easy songs that even children can sing that are in your mother tongue. And these are actually like, these are the survivals of the bards. Yeah, this is how we told stories. And this is how we made sure that they kept their essence. Yeah. Also, like all the fairy tales from Germany, they are also collection of different songs and stories of bards that the brothers Grimm actually collected at some point. Yeah. Also, a lot of the songs of the Gypsies or the Roma and the Sinti and the Yenische, they are also this kind of music. Yeah, it's a lot of storytelling. It's a lot of essence, a lot of wisdom inside of them if you really listen to them. Although it's very simple. Yeah, and I love that also. And so yeah, like I decided to call or name my shaman this name because I really love it. It's an easy name as well, and I like it. So his name is Jilly, and in the spirit of Jilly, I want to tell you a story that I read in a book of Paulo Coelho, and it's about the city of Wells. If you already know it, I'm sorry, but I just thought like I want to share this story today because we are all so sucked up in the idea that if we, because control is about doing, right? When I'm in control, I'm doing something. It's not about relaxation. It's not about letting go. Control is always about being with something very tightly, right? No matter like what kind of control it is. Yeah. If it's mental control, emotional control, astral control, physical control, it's about density, tightness. It's tense. And now we believe we have to constantly do to reach peace within ourselves, to reach a state of greater love within ourselves. And this story reminds us so beautifully of the fact that what we actually have to do is let go, yeah, to open up and to ease and to welcome new experiences into our lives. We have to relax. We have to do the opposite of controlling. We have to allow. Mm? So the story of the city of wells. There was once a big city, and the inhabitants of this city were wells or springs. You can imagine, like, they lived there like humans would live in a city. Each well had its own place to stay, and they lived next to each other, but everyone had their space around them, and they were happy for a long time. These were special wells, so they were able to talk and to live, and they were animated, so to speak. And very importantly, none of these wells had water inside of them. They were like a city of living wells or living springs. And this civilization of wells got richer and richer. And with this, every well started to accumulate more things, like maybe they bought a couch to decor the inside of their well, or they bought a TV, and so on. And over time, like, all of the wells felt a bit dense because there was so much inside of them. And so they started to broaden, like they widened themselves. And this is how it was done for hundreds of years in the city of wells, that each well that like got too dense inside just widened itself, and after these couple of 100 years there was not really much space for wells anymore because they all were kind of like touching each other, and there was no space between them anymore, and each well was so full with stuff. And then one day one well thought, why don't I dug into the depth instead of making myself wider all the time? And the other wells were like, oh my God, are you crazy? No, you can't do that, because if you want to dug deep, you have to like get rid of everything. You have to get everything out of your well, and then you can start to dug, and you don't know what is down there. Yeah. But the well was like, like, there is no other way to go. Yeah, I cannot widen anymore. So I cannot go up because I'm a well. So I have to deepen. And everyone living around him was like, oh my God, this guy has gone nuts. What is going on with him? But he didn't care. So he started to get everything out of him. He got out the couch, he got out the bed, he got out the TV, or whatever wells acquire. I don't know. So I'm also like telling this story from my memory. So whatever, he got all the stuff out, and it was like all lying around him. And everyone around him was like, oh my God, he's like really going nuts. Well, like, they got a little bit scared also, because you don't know what this guy finds down there. Yeah, maybe there's some old landmines and everything explodes or whatever. And also they couldn't understand how like this well could get rid of everything that he accumulated, like everything that he bought, everything that he spent money on or lifetime on. But the well didn't care. And then when everything was empty, he started to dig. And then he digged and he digged. And at some point, he reached water. And he was like, wow, like, that's interesting. I thought there was no water underground in this city anymore for hundreds of years. And then he dug a little bit deeper. And the more he dug, the more water came. And it started to fill the well up, this water, from inside out. And the more he dug, the more water came. And at some point, he realized that he really opened up like this connection to an underground stream of water, fresh water. And his connection was so strong that this water started to fill him up, until at some point the water flowed outside of him and around on the narrow ground around him. And fascinatingly enough, plants started to grow there. Animals started to visit because of the flowers of the plants, and every one of his neighbors was like, "Oh my God, how did you do that? What did you do and how did you do that? That's amazing. It's beautiful." He's like, "Oh, you can do that too, you know? I'm connected to an underground stream. All you have to do is get rid of everything that you have inside of yourself." And they were like, "No, we would do anything but that, you know? Like, no, you're crazy. We won't do that. We are so attached to what we have and what we believe we are. We will not do that." So the well was happy with himself. And after some time, he realized that on the other end of the city, there was another well who maybe had heard the word of his actions and also decided to let go of everything and dig deep. And then one day, this other well also reached that underground stream of fresh water, and they were able to speak or talk, exchange information through that underground stream that connected them. I don't really remember how the story ends exactly, but the reason I told it today is because to me that's exactly what we can do. Like, we can stay in control and we can keep our wells filled with all the stuff that this world told us that we need to be someone. Be it a composure, be it a conditioning in your mind, be it a certain style of clothes. Doesn't matter what it is, yeah? And to like look at all these things and understand that this is not me. And I cannot lose myself by getting rid of these things. All I can do is find myself. So what if I find myself in the moment that I let go of the control that was conditioned into me? What if I can generate a place inside of myself where I feel so safe that all these other stories can vanish? And to me, that's the water that this well finds on the ground. Because once we really connect with ourselves and get out all the rubbish and all the fake stories and all the shaming and blaming, there is so much love and so much light just inside. That's not like, that can't be taken away from the outside, and it can't be distorted by the outside either. It takes a long time to get there. I mean, these wells, I think they took them a couple of years to get all the furniture out and dig that deep, right? But it's so worth it. And I believe that that's how we can come into a deeper sense of joy within ourselves, within our relationships, and also within life in general. To just understand that, like, I think it also took a certain amount of control of the well to get rid of the furniture and or like whatever he had inside. I really don't remember that. It's years ago that I read this story. But I feel like that's what I meant before. Like, there is a certain amount of control needed to get moving, yeah? To do something. There is a certain kind of control needed. There is a goal needed. Yeah, we're dopamine beings. We need that hit of dopamine if we want to do something, right? And we cannot deny that. But then, like, letting go of what the outcome will be, I believe, is what really creates that garden around us that is described so beautifully in this story, from the waters that just like come through us, right? And for some people like me, this might be creative things, yeah, like this flow that comes through me, yeah, or like this urge to create my community because I want to create this safe space for as many beings as possible within themselves, where they can like really be safe and be nurtured and be joyful and happy to be alive and feeling understood. Because that's also something that this story shows so beautifully. Everyone can connect to this underground stream. Everyone can. And we're all the same in that. Yeah. our expressions might differ. Maybe we're neurotypical or we're neurodiverse, but in the end, we're so much alike as well. And I feel that that also can take us out of this blame and shame game that we're all spiraling in some way or another. And yeah, as I said before, like for me, it might be a creative thing, this like flowing of this underground stream through me. And for others, it might be dancing, or it might be writing, or it might be just taking care of other people and their needs, like being a very social being. Or maybe it's DJing at a rave or whatever, like whatever your expression is. And I believe that that's why I'm also a little bit more about letting go of control, because the more you want this flow to go through you, the less it will. Because it's not about control. Whenever you want to control creativity, that's when it gets weird. Yeah? Like these things that we call art today, which are actually not, they come from that. Because you cannot control creativity. You can create within yourself a safe space, and for that you will need a bit of control, in which you can go and from which this creativity will flow, if it's supposed to right now. Yeah, but if you're in this safe space, you will not question it. If it's not flowing, like how many times do I sit in front of a computer? I'm just saying, okay, maybe today it flows or it doesn't. And then I'll have to go with the flow. I cannot control that this symbol has to be done right now. I cannot control that. That's why I need to create enough space. And I tell people, look, it can take up to a month until you get your personal power symbol. But within this month, there will be a day where I sit in front of the computer and it's like, yes, now I see it. Now it's perfect. Yeah. And sometimes this happens within 2 days after ordering. And sometimes it happens after, like, as I said, maybe 2 weeks, and this is like also about creating the space where I can fully relax. And it's not only about creativity. It's also about, as I said with the polyvagal theory last week, it's also about creating the relationships I want. Is also creation. So how do I create the relationships I want? Of course, not through control. The more I can relax into my safe space inside of myself, and the more I feel held and understood and accepted by a community without having to be anything else than myself, and not even having to show that if I don't want to, the more I create safety within myself, and the more I create this deep, deep, deep sense of trust into myself and into the love I get from the universe and into the guidance I get from my own control mechanisms, as well as from letting go mechanisms from the universe, the more beautiful the relationships I create become. Because everything that is on the outside gets created from the space within me. Yeah, it gets created from, I have this safe space. Yeah, and if I have this safe space, even if I do not reach the goal that I try to control so much to reach, it doesn't matter so much because I was in a safe space. And a lot of times I feel like like what I have to say here is, I'm not talking about comfort zone. I'm actually more talking about a safe space that you can create inside of yourself so you can get out of your comfort zone. A safe space that is so safe within of yourself. Like when I had so much social anxiety, I knew I had to go out. But how do you go out when you have social anxiety? I created a safe space. I told myself, hey, I'm going there with you. We're on a date with myself. And whenever I want, I can leave. I can order an Uber. I can call a friend. I had all these mechanisms in place, and they actually created a safe space for me. So it wasn't even feeling anymore like I was just exposed to all these people outside and I couldn't leave or whatever. Yeah. And it's just one very tiny example. But I'm talking about creating a safe space to actually leave our comfort zone, because our comfort zone is the lie that we tell ourselves to not live the life that we actually want to live. Yeah. So, yeah. I hope that made sense. It was a little bit all over the place, but I hope I got to it. You understood what I was talking about. And yeah, I believe strongly that the more we believe in ourselves and our capacity to be the safe space for ourselves, the more we can be it for others, like our kids or also our parents or grandparents. And I believe that like a lot of all the issues we have on this planet right now, which I don't even want to name right now, but like you know all the ones. So I believe that this safe space is like the solution to most of them. Yeah, because the whole world is built on a survival mechanism. It's built on a fight or flight mode. The whole system is built on that. And as long as we try to control anything, we are still in fight or flight. Yeah? So we are still in this polyvagal thing of dorsal or ventral vagal. Yeah? No, dorsal vagal or sympathetic. And we want to go ventral vagal. So we want to go into the safe space to build new systems from there, because otherwise we just build a new system in reaction to what's happening right now. And reactive systems never like really work. Nothing that is built on reactivity really has like a real good stability, because it's built on a reaction. So if it's built on a reaction, once the thing that it's reacting to fades, also this thing will fade, because its basis is built upon something that has now faded. So we don't want to build new system in reaction. We want to build systems from a safe space inside of ourselves. And this safe space is not a lie. It's not about everything will be good, although the world explodes around you right now. Yeah? But then also everything will be good because we are not stuck on this planet forever. Yeah? So, it's always important to not gaslight oneself, but also to understand that in the end, we are some weird flesh beings on a blue-green ball that's circling around a ball of fire, and we don't know shit. So I believe it's not that risky to be that well and just let go of everything I tell myself to be to see what stays. That's what I did when I got divorced in 2018. Like I had this mantra that said, let it all go, see what stays. And like half a year ago or something, I had this super great epiphany where I was like, fuck. I see it so clearly now. I let it all go and I really see very clearly what stayed. And from this what stayed, I see very clearly who I am. Yeah? And it has a lot to do with my creativity, and it has a lot to do with my creative flow and me being autistic or not or whatever. So it's very interesting. It's a very good mantra. Yeah. So I really hope that was interesting, and I hope to see you next week or hear you next week for episode 18. If you're interested in all these community things I was talking about, you can check dadachi.com. It's all there with Enzo Elia and Gnothi Seaton. And you can see Jelly there as well if you want to see him. Exactly. So thank you so, so much for listening. And I hope to hear you next week. Bye bye. Take care. Much love.